All right, good evening. Daf Yomi for the week is sponsored by Trevor and Melanie Reef in honor of the Rav and Kahal Yereim Kehila. And Daf Yomi for the week is also sponsored by Rabbi Greenward and Jeff Wald, B'zchus Refuah Shlema for their dear friend Jeff Dabrowski, Yaakov Ben Miriam. We are at the 2 dots. First wide line. Tana Rabbanan Rabbi Zord. Hahodlich litztadinen. Karkom. If somebody goes to stadiums, karkom are like circuses. Karkom like karkos. I think the mem sophis could be either a mem sophis or a samech, but a circus or something like that. And you see there the snakes. Ves hachabarin and the snake charmers. Bulkyon, mokyon, molyon, lulyon, blorin, and saligorin. These are all names of various clowns that they are. Harez Moshe Leitzim. This is a dwelling place of scoffers. Valeim Kasav Omer. On that, the Torah says, Ashrei ha'isha shelo halach. Pleasant is the person, privileged is the person that does not walk in these ways. And then it says, Ki im b'Torah Hashem chavtzo. Instead, rather, I'm going to presume ki is rather here. In b'Torah Hashem chavtzo with Hashem's.
Ki means but.
But rather is the same, right? So with the Torah of Hashem is his desire. So halamadit, so that teaches us that shedvar Torah. These things are going to bring a person to bittul Torah. Uramini. But we have a contradiction to that. Holchin litztadinin mutter. Right? You're allowed to go to a nitztadinin. You're allowed to go to the stadium. Why? Because when they get to the part where they decide that they're going to kill the person or not, I guess like this is, I'm imagining the Roman king goes like this at the end, right? To be able to save the person, you can be able to cry out, the crowd can cheer for the person to be saved, right? So it's good to be in the crowd, you could save somebody's life. Ulekarkom, but Yishuv Medina. And as far as going to the Karkum is concerned, that's good because you could wind up there. They discussed politics and things, and you could convince the non-Jews to get rid of their evil decrees against the Jews. So ubelvad shelo yischashev imahen, right? As long as you're not allowed to make them like honored, right? If your presence doesn't really honor them, right? So you're there in order to be able to help out, but you don't honor. It doesn't look like you're going to the stadium as far as honoring the festival or something like that. But you're going for purpose. But if you are going to wind up causing honor to them, so then it is prohibited, because then they'll feel like, we're in charge, and that'll just increase the type of oppression that they do. So kasha itztadinin kasha karkum akarkum. So we've got a contradiction of stadiums and we've got this contradiction of karkums. So one says you can go, one says you can't. So bishlam akarkum lokasha. As far as the karkum is concerned, it's not a contradiction. We said already, if you're going to be able to give respect to the people who are there, that's a bad thing. If you're going in order to be able to participate in the conversation and help the Jews out, that's okay. That makes sense. Kasha, how are you going to be able to understand whether you can go to the stadiums or not? So tonight it is a machlokas tanoim. That's why. And it says like this: Titania, we learn in Rabbi, ein hochel litztadinin mipnei moshav leitzim. The first opinion says you're not allowed to go to a stadium because that's a moshav leitzim, bad place to be. Rabbi Nosson matir mipnei shnei dvarim. And Rabbi Nosson says it's okay because of two reasons. Number one, you can cry out and you could save the person. Second of all, if somebody does get killed, you can testify in court in order to allow his wife to remarry.
Do you go to Rabbi Nosson in this situation?
I don't know. I've never been to a Roman Colosseum to witness the blood sports. It's a good question. It seems as though that you need to be careful where you head. That's what it seems to be. Tana Rabbanan, Rabbi's learn. Ein hochel litarteos ula karkasios. And this one's probably the circuses, right? You're not allowed to go to the theaters or the karkasios. Mibnei shemezavlin sham zivul lavodos kachavim. The reason is because people they pledge in order to be able to worship the Avodah Zara. I guess that was where they collect that, and whether they collected the ticket prices or whatever it was. But there they collect for Avodah Zara. Malcolm she'in mezavlin sham aser mipnei moshav leitzim. Even if they don't collect money in order to be able to support the Avodah Zara, they don't have a tax there for that. It's still bad because it's moshav leitzim, bad place to be. My beinaihu. What is the difference between the two sides? So Amar of Chanina Misura, so Chanina Misura says Nasav and Nasan Ika Beinaihu. The difference is if you do, if you did business, right, and you went there and you did business, and let's say you were, I don't know, you had a vending, whatever you were doing, selling.
Selling kosher food for
or selling. You were selling. Let's say you're selling kosher food, right? So let's say you're the beer salesman or whatever. So if it's a problem of Avodah Zara money, so then you have to get rid of the money that you earned by working there. And if it's the issue is just a motion of leitzim, well, you were on your job. So probably shouldn't have gone there, but now that you did, there's nothing prohibited about the money that you earned. Darash Rabbi Shimon Pazi. Rabbi Shimon Pazi made the following explanation. Ma'dichsiv. Now let's go back over this pasuk. What is this pasuk? It says, Ashrei Isha Asher Lo Halach Ba'atzas Rishayim. Happy is the person, or good is the person, or well off is the person that he does not go in the advice of the wicked. Ubederach HaTaim Lo Amad. He does not stand in the way of the sinners. Ubemoshav Leitzim Lo Yashav. And he doesn't sit around with the scoffers. V'chimiach Asher Lo Halach. So you've got this procedure here, right? Don't go in their ways, then don't stand there, and then don't sit there. So me'achar shelo halach, in the first place, don't go there. So you didn't go there, so then heichon amad, then where are you standing? Me'achar shelo amad, so if you're not standing there, heichon yashav, then how would it wind up be that you're standing there? Me'achar shelo yashav, heichon lat, so then once you're not sitting there, there's no problem of being a scoffer. So how do you understand the pasuk? Ella, so rather it means like to tell you like this, she'im halach, that if you do go, so then sofa lamod, you're going to wind up spending your time there. You're going to stay there. V'im amad, and if you do stand there, sofa leishev, then you're going to wind up settling in. V'im yeshev, and if you do sit around there, sofa lalutz, then you're going to get and become a scoffer. V'im lotz, and if you become a scoffer, so then Allah v'kos omer, that's where the pasuk says, im chachmas lecha levadcha tisa, which over there. Im chachamta lach levad chatisa. Right? If you thought, if you calculated your wisdom, so then it will be for you as a benefit. But pasuk continues, vilatsta, right? But if you wind up being one who is elate, who scoffs, so then that's for you alone. Right? You're going to benefit, if you're wise, you'll benefit all those around you. But if you're a scoffer, so then you're just going to be, for nobody but yourself. Okay. Amar Rebbe. Rebbe says, and it says Rabbi Elazar, but we're going to change to, not Eliezer, Elazar. It's Rabbi Elazar. Kol ha-mislotet yisurin ba'analav. Anybody who scoffs, then the afflictions come to you, right? You get afflicted because of it. Shneimar pasuk says, V'ata al tislotetu pen yechazku mos reichem. So this pasuk is in Yeshaya, right? You should not scoff, right? Because you don't want to be that you'll get your afflictions will grab onto you. So Rav said to the Rabbanan, "B'matusam ba'ina minaychu delo titzlotasu." He used to tell his students, "I guess I'm begging upon you, please don't become a scoffer. Delo leisu alaychu yisurin, because you don't want to bring upon yourselves any afflictions." Right? That's not good. So stay away from scoffing. Amar Rav Katina says, "Kol mislotzeis mizonosav mismatin." Anybody who becomes a scoffer, so he's going to wind up having his food diminished. That's going to be one of the problems he's going to have. Shneimar, pasuk says, "Mashach yado es lotitzim." Hashem draws his hand away from those who scoff. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, "Kol mislotzeis nofel begehenim." Anybody who's a scoffer, he falls into Gehenna. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Zayd Yahir, if you are intentionally a haughty person. Leitz Shemo, so he will be called his scoff, he will be named a scoffer. Osa be'evras Zodon, he will be done into the wrath into purposeful wrath. Evra is a wrath, and it says "Ve'ein Evra ela Gehenna," but the word Evra, the wrath, refers to Gehenna, right?
We're talking about somebody who makes fun of other people. That's scoffing.
That's basically how scoffing is, right? Yeah. I also think that it's I don't know if it's just making fun of other people or whether it's mocking and not taking anything seriously, right? So therefore, you can't have a legitimate, real conversation about doing good because everything is nothing's important. Nothing is valuable. Shneimar, how do we know that Evra refers to Gehenna because it says Yom Evra Hayomahu. That will be the day of wrath, and that's the day of judgment when people who are doing evil get sent to Gehenna. Amar Voshai Rav says Koha Misyaher. Now, what's also somebody who is haughty? No for Gehenna. He goes to Gehenna as well. Shenemar's pasuk says Zayd Yahir late Shemo. A Zayd Yahir, an intentional haughty person. He is named late, and Oseb Evar Sodon he's going to do in Gehenna. Vein Evra El Gehenna. The word Evra, as we said, same thing is Gehenna. Shnemar's pasuk says Yom Evra Hayomahu. The word Evra, wrath, refers to the wrath of Gehenna at the end of days. Amar Rabbi Chaniloi says, sorry, Amar Rabbi Chaniloi bar Chaniloi. Rabbi Chaniloi, the son of Chaniloi, says.
Why is he?
He has the same name of his father.
Yeah,
he was Sephardi. Yeah, I was going to say somebody's going to say he's Sephardi. Yeah, but they didn't have Sephardim yet, right? There was no. They didn't have moved, right?
Back in the day, there were a lot of names.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Let's see if anybody brings up.
Well, isn't there a Girsa change because they have here? The
yeah,
is Rabbi Tanchum bar Chanilai.
Right, that's probably what happened. Right, Ches is. Yeah, it's Rabbi Tanchum. That's what should change, right? It should be Rabbi Chanilai bar Chanilai. It should be Rabbi Tanchum bar Chanilai. So that solves our problem. Call mislotzates. So anybody's a scoffer. Gorim Kahal Yereim. He causes the world to be ended, right? The end of the world. Shnemar. It says ve'ata al tislotzu pen yechasku mosrechem ki kala. Right? That now do not scoff because. Your afflictions will be upon you. And then the pasuk continues, which we stopped right there before when we quoted this pasuk. Ki kala v'necherotza shamati, because I am hearing that the end and destruction of the world. So therefore, that's what is caused by the scoffing. Amar Rebbe, this is Rebbe Elazar again. Kasha he shetchilas yisurin v'sofa kliya. So litonos is really bad because at the beginning you get afflictions and the end you wind up getting obliterated. Right? It's a bad situation. Stay away from it. Darash Rabbi Shimon Pazi. Rabbi Shimon Pazi says, "Asher isha sher lo halach litartes lukarkosios shalom dekochavim." Praiseworthy is a person, right? That is. Has never gone to the theaters or the circuses of the idol worshippers. That part that's the pasuk lo halach. And now he's taking the pasuk halach hamad, the same pasuk we had before, but he's now dividing it up and giving practical explanations of what each part of the pasuk is. Don't go there means don't go to the theater. So this depends on who your modern posik is. So go ask your official Rav before you decide whether these are the same sorts of places, whether it's the theaters that they had then were probably a little bit more...
but like a Mervish theater, like a Broadway theater would be considered what this is.
It's a good question. Like I said, I don't know where the boundary is. I don't know.
I thought these theaters were like ones that their profits went towards like funding idol worship.
That was one explanation. The other explanation was it was just a Moshe Leitzin. It was just a waste of time, right? So that was just a secondary, second concern, right? So exactly how we take this now. I'm going to see if this is brought lahalacha someplace. I'll take a look tonight and see. But I don't think we bring it lahalacha because.
Broadway play like
Broadway plays. I know,
like Mervish, for example.
That's what I was told. At one point it was precisely.
There you go. So, but as I said, it depends on who you're going to ask. It probably also depends on who you are. Right?
Yeah.
Where you're going to spend your time. As the question was asked, somebody once asked thereof if they could go to a movie during Sfiras Omer, and they were told, I don't know if you can go to a movie not during Sfiras Omer. So that was the question, right? Okay. So and now the next one is Ubederech hatayim lo amad. He did not stand in the ways in the sinner's place. Zeh shelo amad bekangion. These are the people who did not stand around in the kangion, which is the hunt, right? So that's just where King Charles, right? He goes out there stands there with his dog, and he goes there and he shoots, and the dog runs and grabs it. That's the standing. That's a bad thing for you to hang around with. Also, it's a complete waste of time. And umosh of leitzim lo yeshev. Don't sit around with the scoffers. Shelo yeshev betachbulos. You should not hang around with the people who scoff and just talk idle chatter in the bars or whatever they do. Shema yomer adam ho lo halachti tertos l'karkos. Now, a person might think to himself, you know what? I didn't go to the theaters. I didn't go to the circuses. And I also didn't go to do the dog hunts. He says, you know what I should do? I'll just go to sleep. Right? The best thing for me to do is stay out of trouble. So stay home, take a nap. So Talmud Lomar, if the pasuk says, "Ube Torah so yega yomam v'layla," you need to learn Torah day and night. That's what you're supposed to be doing, right? It's not what you don't do only; it's what you should do instead. Amar of Shmuel Bar Nachman. Shmuel Bar Nachman says, "Amar of Yonasan, Ashrei Isha Shaloach Batzas Hashem." Back to the pasuk again, right? Praiseworthy is the person that does not go in the advice of the wicked. Ze Avram Avinu. This is referring to Avram Avinu. Shelo halach ba'atzas anshe dor haflaga. He did not follow the ways of the Tower of Babel. He's 48 at the time of the Tower of Babel. So he chose not to do it.
This one Hashem changed all
the languages.
Yeah.
He was 48 at that time, if you consider calculate where he was. And it was not like ancient history by the time he was around.
Wow.
Shed. Okay. They were wicked people. Shneimar, as pasuk says, Havad nivne lonu ir. They said, let's go build us our big city. Right? We're not going to go spread out and, like Hashem said, all around the world. We're going to make one big city right here. Lo amad. And don't stand with the wicked. Shelo amad b'midas. That is Avram Avinu again. He did not stand with the people of Sodom. Shechatim hayu, because shechotim hayu. I guess they were sinners. Shneimar pasuk says, "Vanshe Sodom ro'im v'chatim l'Hashem od." The people of Sodom were wicked and sinners to Hashem a lot. Ubemoshav leitzim lo yashav. He didn't dwell with the scoffers. Shelo yashav b'moshav anse plishtim. He didn't hang around when he went to Avimelech's place and the plishtim were there. He didn't stay there. Mibnei sheleitzanam hayu. Their problem was, right, that it was late sonim. Why? Shnamar the pasuk says, "Vayehi ketov libam vayamru kar'u l'shimshon vayisachik lanu." Now, this is interesting. This pasuk is way later in history. That when Plishtim capture Shimon, they say, "Let's put Shimshon up. Let's have a good time. Let's put some sport. Let's shackle him up and play with Shimshon a little bit." But right, even Avram Avinu back in those days, it says that when Avimelech says, "Why did you pick on us? Why did you lie?" And he says, "Because I saw that there's no fear of Hashem in this place." That was what Avram Avinu says he saw. So that's this idea. There's this Moshe Leitzim. They didn't have any fear or take anything seriously. They're always fooling around, and so that is what Avram Avinu needs to stay from.
Whenever was thrown into
The fiery furnace.
Right? Similarly, that's aspect.
So that issue is not brought up, right? There's no issue with Nimrod as part of these issues, right?
I think Nimrod thought if Avram was not burning in the fire, I'm just going to jump in as well for the heck of it. See if Hashem was saving or not.
Right, Nimrod doesn't jump in, right? That's Haran, right? Haran. Right?
I meant Haran.
Yeah. Ashrei ish yorei es Hashem. Praiseworthy person that fears Hashem. Ashrei ish velo ashrei isha. So now that pasuk says the praiseworthy person, a man who fears Hashem. This pasuk is in Tehillim, right? Haluka Ashrei Ish Yorei Hashem b'mitzvosav Kuf Yud Beis. Tehillim, beginning. So that means it's only for men, not women. Amrav says Amrav Ashrei Misha Osa Tshuva Keshu Ish. It means that a person should do tshuva when he's still a man, meaning when you're young. Don't wait till you're too old, because then you're only able to do full tshuva if you're able to go back into the same situation again and not do the same thing. If you're already old and don't have the same yitzoros, your desires or things, so then it's impossible for you to do a full tshuva and get full complete forgiveness on it. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, "Ashrei Mishim is gaber al yitzro kish," means that praiseworthy is a person who is strong against his desires like a man, fights his desires like a man. It's not meaning men, not women. It's just that this is the characteristic of overcoming and fighting against something is a male characteristic. B'mitzvosav chafetz ma'od. Right? So pasuk says, the end of that pasuk says that with his mitzvos, he desires some mitzvos greatly. Amar Rabbi Lazar, b'mitzvosav velo b'schar mitzvos. A person wants to do the mitzvos, not get the reward from the mitzvos. He likes the mitzvos themselves. V'hainu ditnan. That's what we learned in a Mishnah. Hu haya omer. Altu kavodim hameshamshes harav almanas lekabel pras says in Pirkei Avos, don't be a person who serves Hashem in order to get a reward. Ela hayu kavodim hameshamshes harav shelo almanas lekabel pras. You got to be somebody who serves Hashem not to get a reward. Ki im betoras Hashem cheftzo. Now back into the pasuk we quoted earlier, that with the Torah of Hashem is his desire. Amar Rav, Ein Adam lomed Torah ella mimakom shalibo chafetz. This tells us person can't learn unless he really likes the subject matter. That's the way it is, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a chassid and you start doing Mishnah Berurah or whatever, it's not gonna take, right? Mm-hmm. And if you are a Litvish guy and whatever, and you're doing the late night what do you call it, Kabbalah stuff, it's just not gonna take. Right. So you got to be into your thing. Shenemar's pasuk says, "Ki im b'Torah Hashem chaftzo." He has to be with the Torah of Hashem that he desires. So Levi v'Rebbi Shimon b'Rebbi Yosvi Kame deRebbi. So Levi and Rabbi Shimon b'Rebbi were sitting in front of Rebbe. V'Kapaski Sidra. So they were learning. They were going through their Siddharim there, and Solik Safra. They made a siyum. They finished. Okay, so Levi Amar Laisulan Mishlei says, you know what? Let's learn Mishlei next. Okay, Rabbi Shimon Rebbe Amar Laisulan Tehillim. So Rabbi Shimon Rebbe says, let's learn Tehillim next. So
how can you learn Tehillim if you're saying it as a sound?
You learn it. It's psukim, right? They're mafarshim, things to learn. Yep. So Kafi Levi Vaisu Tehillim. So they forced Levi. Sorry, we avoided you, Levi, and go get the Tehillim. So they decided they're going to Tehillim. Kimatu hacha, so they got to hear. Now, keep in mind, this is which pasuk is this? This is Parakuf Yud Beis, 112. So they had been learning for quite a while. They got to 112. They were far in, right? So Ki b'Torah Hashem chaftzo, with the Torah of Hashem is his desire. Parish Rebbe. Then Rebbe got up and he said, Ein Adam lomed Torah ela mimakom shalibo chafetz. He says that he got to this part. He says that a person needs to be able to learn what he's interested in. Amar Levi. So Levi said, you know what? I was interested in Mishlei this whole time. Rebbe nasat lana rishus lamo. He says, okay, great. Gave me permission to stop right here. I'm done.
Done.
Amar Rav Dimi Bar Chama. So Rav Dimi Bar Chama says, another explanation of pasuk is, anybody who's learning Torah, Hashem does his desires for him. Right? Hashem takes care of him. Shnem pasuk says, Kim b'Torah Hashem, kama chaftzo. Right? If he serves the Torah of Hashem, then his desires Hashem takes care of. Right? Amar Rava says, Liolam yilmod adam Torah b'makom shlibo chafetz. Person should always pick to learn Torah in a place that he is interested in, his heart desires. Shnem pasuk says, Kim b'Torah Hashem chaftzo. We just said. Amar Rava says, Batchila nikres al shemo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At first, the Torah, when you get into it, first the Torah is called Hashem's Torah. Ulevasof nikres al shemo, and eventually it becomes your Torah. Shnemar's pasuk says, b'Torah Hashem chaftzo. The Torah of Hashem he desires, ubetorah so, and in his Torah, which you would presume means in Hashem's Torah, the continuation of that earlier part, but no, in his Torah, his own Torah, yehegeh yomam balayla, he will delve into day and night, right? So it's two different things. Hashem's Torah, and then he's got his own Torah that he goes into day and night, then it becomes his.
Isn't it always Hashem's Torah, no matter what?
No, once at some point, that's the chiddush, right? At some point, you acquire ownership, you start figuring things out, and coming up with your own understandings. Rava says, Liolam yilmod adam Torah. First, a person, the way to do it, Yehuda, is first you got to learn the Torah. V'yachar kach yega. Then you got to really think about it. Spend your time thinking about it. Shenemar b'Torah Hashem. Right. First is the Torah of Hashem. V'hadar u'besoroso yega. Then afterwards, spend some time meditating, thinking about it. Right. You got to learn it. Got to understand the material first. Then you can start thinking about it. People go too quick into their thoughts about what's going on. You don't know what you're talking about yet, right? I had there was a fellow who there was a fellow who was a ger himself, who was a Baal Tshuva ger, and somebody who came into the shul wanted to start learning. So the rabbi set him up with him, and he said, "Learn with this guy. This was you 10 years ago." Right. And the guy says, "Okay." So the guy says, and he goes, "Okay. First thing you're going to have to know, if you're going to sit here and I'm going to tell you what's going on in the sefer, you're going to tell me, but you think this, you think that, you think that. I'm going to hit you because it's not the way we're going to do it. The purpose of you learning is to understand what the sefer says, not what you say. So that's the idea, right? You have to understand what the sefer says first." Then you could start considering it and contemplating it. V'amar Rav says, "Elam ligaris inish v'afagav demishkach v'afagav delo yoda my ka'amar. So he says a person, right, should always first review his the written teachings, right? Should always ligris inish. Right? He should review his learning, even though he forgets, and even though he doesn't know what he's talking about, right? He should review it anyway. Just keep going over it. V'yafal gav, as it was everybody's doing the Daf Yomi, right? Don't worry about if you miss it, whatever. It's good. V'yafal gav delo yada ma'ikam. Maybe he doesn't know. Shneimar pasuk says, garsa nafshi li sa'ava. So garsa ksiv velo ksiv tachana. David says that he uses the word garsa rather than to grind, right? Meaning that because of his desire. Yeah, so he says his nefesh was used the word garsa to gores, to read it over rather than to grind litava. And the reason is because if grinding means I'm successful at breaking the kernel down into its smaller parts. David Melech saying no, even if I can't break it down, even if I don't understand it, I go over it again and again and again anyway.
Until you chop it.
I understand it, even if I never chop it. Go over it, and then eventually, right, that's the idea. Hopefully it'll break open, but don't worry about that. Just go over your learning anyway. Rava, Ra Miksiv. Rava made the following contrast between the psukim. It says in Mishlei, al gape, right, when the people are called in to learn, so they'll be called in to go sit on the wings of knowledge of the Torah. That's called the wings of knowledge of Torah, uksiv. And then another pasuk says in Mishlei, which is just 11 psukim later, al kisei, that he should be sitting in the chair of wisdom. So which is, do you sit on the wings or do you sit on the chair? But chila al gape, ulevasof al kisei. The answer is at first you are on the wings, and then eventually you're in a chair. So gape means when you sit on the wings, that is a non-permanent seat, right? You take a moment, you're like, hey, yeah, come on. That's how it starts, right? Start off, you'll have unsure footing. Eventually, with enough learning, you'll be able to sit regular, steady in a chair. Ksiv, pasuk says, Barosh miromim, the learning is way up at the top of the mountains. Uksiv ale derech, and then another pasuk says that it's along the way, along the road. But chila, at first, Barosh miromim, the learning is way up high, right? It's way up away. And at the end, ale derech, that, right, and first you're going to be able to, when you learn it, you learn kind of quietly, secretly to yourself till you kind of understand it. Then after a while, you become more comfortable and you can do it in public, right? Maybe on camera even. Ula Ramiksiv, Ula contrasted the following psukim. Shesei mayim mi borecha, water from your own cistern. Uksiv, and then the next pasuk says v'nozlim mitoch be'erecha, and you should drink, right, from your well. The difference between a cistern and a well is a cistern is a large collection of water. It is a finite amount. A well has groundwater coming up and constantly seeping into it, so it's always adding, increasing, and growing up. So that means, but chila should say mi borecha. First, the way you should be learning Torah is that you should be drinking from your cistern, right? That means that you're going to drink from the set and established finite learning. Then, ulvasof, after that, then you can go into your well and increase in understanding and delve and increase. Right? First, understand what the Torah says. Then you come up with your chidushim and new Torah and things, and then it winds up with a flowing with a flow that comes afterwards. Amar Rava, Rava says, Amar Rav, in the name of Rav, in the name of Rav Schora. Amar Rav Huna, the name of Rav Huna. How do you understand the pasuk? It says, Hon mehevel yimat. The kovetz al yad yirbeh. So that a lot from nothing. If you gather a lot from nothing, it will become diminished, and if you gather by hand, then it will be increased. So that means Im ose adam Torah so chavilos. If a person grabs up large amounts of Torah, like grabs up bundles and bundles of Torah, so mismite. You're gonna forget everything, right? The im kovetz al yad, but if you go hand one bit at a time, so then yarbe, then you'll get lots and lots of Torah. That's what that means.
That's my biggest thing with Daf Yomi.
It is indeed. That is the biggest thing with Daf Yomi.
Like if you're not chazering, you're just wasting your time.
Well, you just have. Well, it depends on how. You're right. The question is how long it takes you to chazer it, right? Sometimes people take 7.5 years to go through it again. But yes, no, 100%. You got to chazer it. Very important.
Yeah.
That's why, if you remember this young man who joined us for a little bit from Makos, right? It was great chazara for him. He seemed to have learned it before, and that was a chazara, so it was great.
Nachi.
Yeah, Nachi.
Nachi.
We miss you, Nachi, if you're around.
Oh, yeah.
Amar Rava. Rava says, Yadi Rabbanan laha milsa va'avrila. You know, the rabbis know this, but they don't pay attention to it, right? So I'm sorry. It's like, are you Zara? I don't learn. So the fact of the matter is, yeah, lots of people do learn way more than they do chazara. That's true. Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak, even then, right? It's always great when you see Gemara. It's like, even then, they had a problem too. So it's not just us. So Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Ona avidate v'kaim b'dis. I want you to know, I took it slow. I did my chazara, and I remembered my learning through doing that. So it's a good thing to do. Amar Rav Shizbi, Mishmei de Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rav Shizbi said, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, how do you interpret the pasuk? Lo yachroch remia tzido, that a trickster hunter will not be able to roast his catch. How do you understand that? Lo yichya velo yarich yamim. He will not live, and he will not have length of days. Sayed Haramai, the trickster, the hunter that is the trickster, right? If that's a person if a person is learning in order to be able to show people how much he knows, right? He makes himself look really smart because he's learning so that he can do that, but he doesn't go over he's not doing chazorah for himself to be able to make sure that he remembers it. Rather, he's just showing off, learning quickly to go show how much he knows. That person is not going to wind up to get orech yamim as a result of that. That's what it means. For Rav Shesha, Rav Shesha says, Tzayed ha-ramai yachroch, he says, the hunter who is cunning, he will roast. Meaning that somebody who uses tricks and cunning and smarts and intelligence in his learning is going to be able to roast and feast. He reads it backwards, right? Not like, will this, right? Won't he? Right? It's not... Ki also Rav Dimi Omar, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael, so he said, Mashal Adam Shitzad Tziporin. It's like, imagine a person who is catching birds. Im mishaber knafeha shel rishona kulam miskaimos. If he clips the wings of the first bird he catches, he'll keep the birds biyado in his hand. V'im lav, but if he doesn't, ein mekaimos biyado, then he won't be able to keep any of them. Right?
If you clip the wings from the bird, you won't be able to fly anymore.
That's the idea. Because if you don't clip the wings of the birds you catch and you go try to catch your second bird, the first one flies away as soon as you leave it be.
Properly catch it.
That's correct. You have to properly catch the bird, clip the wings, and then go get your next bird. Right? That's the order, right? Make sure you do it. V'haya ke'etz shosel al palge mayim. Okay, so you'll be like a tree that is rooted on the splitting of the water, right? I guess the divergence of the water. So Amri Debir Rabbi Yanai. So in Yeshiva Rabbi Yanai says, Ke'etz shosel velo ke'etz nentua. You've got to be like a rooted tree, not like a planted tree, right? A planted tree is where they take the seed, put it in the ground, and the tree grows. That's not how you want to be. You want to be the tree that they plant, then they dig it up, put it in a pot, sell it, then they go bring it to wherever else it needs to go, and then they plant, they reroot the tree in a new place. That's how you want to be, which means Kol halomei Torah meirav echad. Anybody who learns Torah from their same original rabbi, in a raw siman bracha liyolam, is not going to see a siman bracha. Right? You got to start with one rabbi, and then you got to move on. Right? At some point. Right? Amar lehu Rav Chisda l'Rabbanan. So Rav Chisda said to the Rabbanan, Boi de'ema lechu milsa. I need to tell you guys something. Umistafina, but I'm worried. Deshavkisu li v'azlisu. That you're going to leave me once I tell you this. And that is, Kol lomei Torah meirav echad. Anybody who learns Torah from one rabbi, in a raw siman bracha liyolam, is not going to see a siman bracha. Right? You got to at some point move from grade 2 to grade 3 or something. They move up, right?
So if we're learning Torah with you, how's that?
Well, I'm assuming that you didn't start with me, right? You came from somebody else to me, and eventually you'll go on to something else.
We went to different Magi Shiur.
We used to have 7 or 8 guys here, so everybody else already followed this. So that's what happened. They're at another shiur somewhere. So Baruch Hashem. So, okay. So after he told them this, right? So he told them this. Shavku, they left him. They said, "Oh, really?" And they said, "Okay, great." And they left the rabbi. The also came to Rava. They came to Rava. Amar Lohu. He told them, "Honey, mili svara." That's when you guys get to the advanced stages, right? The logic, calculation stuff. Then you need a different Rav. You got to argue back.
Remember that's come for the next couple of days.
Aval, however, Gemara meirav echad adif. It's better to get your learning straight in order from one rabbi, right? Get everything in order first. Then, when you got to start debating and arguing, it's good to go someplace else to be able to get that. Ki heichi delo liflug lishnei. Because we don't want to wind up with different gear sols and people get confused, right? Between this, you said it this way, you said it that way. So better to get consistency. That's what's important. Okay, that is the Yud Tesma base. Top line, al palge mayim, right? On the divergence of the water. Amr of Tanchum bar Chaniloi. Rabbi Tanchum bar Chaniloi says, Liolam yishalish adam shnosov. A person has to divide his years into 3 parts. Shlish b'mikra, spend first third of your life in reading psukim. Shlish b'mishnah, spend a third of years learning mishnayos, and shlish b'talmud, and then a third doing Talmud. Right? The Talmud is the back and forth arguing part. Gemara. Now, problem is, miyad inish kamachai. You don't know how long you're going to live, so therefore you don't know when a third happens. So the answer is ki kamrina biyomi. We're saying no, that's your day, right? Spend a third of your day doing basic psukim, go over the parsha, spend a third of your day going through halacha, mishnayos, plain stuff, and then spend a third of your day going through the Gemara.
You got the sheer time really well.
I know, we're doing well. So, fine. Asher piryo yutain b'ito. Pasuk continues on and says, this is the very first parak of Tehillim, right? That his fruit it will give in its time. So Amar Rava says, Im piryo yutain b'ito. So if he gives his fruit in its proper time, meaning that he fulfills whatever it is that he's learning, so then valehu lo yibol, so then his leaves will not wither, which means that his learning will stay with him, right? He carries it out. Vim lav, but if not, so then so al ha-lomed val ha-malamed. So then the what's it called, the retribution is going to be on the person who's learning and the teacher. Alei Makas of Omer, the pasuk says about both of them, lo kain harishaim, not so for the wicked, right? Ki'im, right, etc. Instead, the bad things are going to happen, right? They're wicked because they don't go into practice. Okay. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rav Huna. Rabbi Abba said in Rav Huna. Amar Rav, name of Rav. Ma'edichsiv, how do you explain the pasuk that says, Ki rabim chalalim hi pila, that many corpses were felled. So, Zeh Talmud shlo higia lahora umora. So this is talking about, this is at the end of Mishlei, this is a person who has no business giving a psak halacha. He's a student, and yet he makes piskei halacha anyway, right? He's destroying and causing big problems for people. Then the pasuk continues, V'atumim kol harugeha, and the great ones are the ones that he killed. Zet Talmud shegila rav ein amora. That's talking about a Talmud who should be teaching, and he doesn't, right? You got to be one way. You got to be able to know when it's time and do it. Ad kama. So how long do you have to wait till you become appropriate to teach halacha and things until we give psak halacha? Ad mem shnin. Right? You got to be 40 years old. 40 years old is a good place to stop. Problem is v'ha Rava. What about Rava? Rava he died at 40. Right? Rava died at 40 years old, and here we've got him all over the Gemara with a lot of things that he said. So, v'ha Rava ori, right? He was teaching halacha. He was teaching giving piskei, psakim, whatever he's doing, right? So hasam bit shavim. The answer is that Rava there was nobody who was greater than him in the city, right? He was the greatest one. So therefore, that's why he was able to do it earlier, right? If there are others, so then you can get involved when you're 40. But if you're the best one, and you gotta come forward. Pasuk says, "Va'alei lo yibol," right? His leaves will not wither. So Amar Rav Acha Bar Adam Rav Acha Bar Adam said Rav. The Amri La, and some say that it was Amar Rav Acha Bar Abba Amar Rav Hamnuna Amar Rav. Shafilu Sichas Chulin Shel Tamid Chacham Tzricha Talmud. That somebody, even the idle speech of a Talmud Chacham needs to be investigated and learned from. Shenemar, as Pasuk says, Va'alegu lo yibol v'chol asher yaseh yatzliach. His leaves, meaning not even his fruits, right? The leaves should not be discarded, right? And that's the next part. Is v'chol asher yaseh yatzliach is the next part. But that is that even the leaves, right? You have to be able to investigate the leaves. Next, v'chol asher yaseh yatzliach. The pasuk before that, right? We were in Parak Aleph, pasuk Gimel. Now we're in Parak Aleph, pasuk Beis, which was v'chol asher yaseh yatzliach. Everything that he does, he will succeed. What's the continuation of the same pasuk? Yeah, the same pasuk. It's the same pasuk. He just says here Tilam Aleph Beis. It's the wrong citation. It should be Av Gimel. It's a continuation of the same pasuk. V'chol asher yaseh yatzliach. Everything that he does will be successful. Amar Rav Yeshua ben Levi. Rav Yeshua ben Levi says, "Davar zeh kasav b'Torah. V'shanoi b'Neviim." This thing is written in the Torah. It's repeated in the Navi and Meshulish b'Ksuvim, and you can find it again in the Ksuvim. Same topic. Kol osik b'Torah nechasav matzlichim lo. Anybody who learns Torah, he's going to wind up having his parnasa taken care of. The kasav b'Torah, it's written in the Torah. Dichsev, pasuk says, "Ushmartem es divrei habris hazos." You should guard the words of this covenant. V'asisim osam, and you will do them. Leman taskilu as kol asher ta'asun, so that everything that you get involved in will be successful. Okay, Shanoi bin Neviim. It's repeated in the Navi. Tichsev, as the pasuk says in Sefer Yeshua, Lo yamush Sefer HaTorah zemi picha. You should never allow the Sefer Torah to stop being in your mouth. V'yigisa bo yomam v'layla, and you should learn it day and night. Leman tishmor lasos kechol hakasavo, so that you will be able to guard and do everything that's written in it. Ki oz tatzliach es darkecha, because then your way will be successful. Vaz taskil, and then you will be able to be successful. Meshulosh b'ksuvim, and then you see it again in Ksuvim, and that's our pasuk in Tehillim. The pasuk says, "Ki b'Torah Hashem chafetzo," with the Torah Hashem is his desire. B'Torah so yageh yom v'layla, and his Torah he learns day and night. V'haya ke'etz, etc. Right, because as we said before, the Torah says if he goes with Torah Hashem, then chafetzo, then Hashem will take care of his desires. Hashem will take care of you. You will be like a rooted tree on the divergent waters, that will have fruit delivered in its time, and its leaves will not be discarded, and everything you do will be successful. Okay, Machriz Rabbi Alexandri. So Rabbi Alexandri made the following announcement. He announced it as follows. Man boy chai, who loves life, right? So kanuf v'asu kuliyam. Everybody's like, oh, I want life. Well, no one will see what this guy's got to say. So they all gathered around Legabe. They came to him. So Amri, they said, Hamri lei havlan chai. Okay, great. Tell us, how do we get life? So Amar lahu, he said to them, Mihai shechavetz chayim, who is the one who desires life? Nitzur l'shon chameira, guard your mouth from speaking evil. Shema yomar adam natzarti l'shon mira. Usvasai midar mimri. He says, great, I stopped. I didn't say anything. I didn't talk to anybody about anything. So elech ves gar b'shina. You know what I'll do? I'll go home and I'll go to sleep, because then I can't speak lashon hara if I'm asleep. It's the best thing to do. Tam Alomar, therefore it says, Sur meira v'asei tov. You got to get away from doing bad, but you got to do good, right? You can't just get away from doing bad. Ve'ein tov ela Torah, and good is Torah. That's what you got to do. You got to learn Torah. Shneimar ki lekach tov nasati lechem torasi al ta'azov. I give you a purchased item, a great item, and you should not leave it. Okay, now we move back to the Mishnah. Higia lekipa. So they were able to build, construct certain types of bathhouses and things with the non-Jews. When you get to the dome, which is the area where they put their Avodah Zara, you're supposed to stop. Makom shemamidim ba'avodas kucham, you're supposed to stop. Amar Rabbi Elazar says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Im bana, let's say you did it. You didn't stop. You didn't realize. You kept going. Scharo mutter. Then the money that you get paid for doing the job, you can keep. It's not usher. You shouldn't do that. But if you did it, the money, you don't have to get rid of the money. Pshita, that seems obvious. You didn't do Avodah Zara. It's nothing as Avodah Zara, but you should. So, Mishamshe Avodas Kochavim Hein. Mishamshe Avodas Kochavim Bein Rabbi Yishmael, Bein Rabbi Akiva, Einan Asurin. This is just something built for the service of Avodah Zara. And things that you profit from in the service of Avodah Zara, so
no go usually.
whether it's Rabbi Yishmael or Rabbi Akiva, they're not themselves prohibited. Avodah Zara items themselves are prohibited, but not the things that service the things for Avodah Zara, which we will learn in detail later on. So ad shiavodu, until they are actually served as Avodah Zara. So Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Lo nitzricha el avodas kochavim atzma. We're talking about the guy actually built the Avodah Zara. He made the idol. Now that's a problem. Okay. So ha nichel man davar avodas kochavim sheyisrael asura miyad. So fine. This is good according to the opinion. There's an argument later on. If a Jewish person makes an idol, as soon as his idol is complete, it is prohibited immediately. And we'll learn from Sukkim. But a non-Jew makes an idol, right? It's not an idol till he worships it. Okay? So therefore, it doesn't become Avodah Zarah till he actually worships it. So then Shapir. So then this makes sense. Why? Because he made the idol. At that point, it wasn't an idol yet, because it was the non-Jews.
How can you make an idol if it's not idol?
He's not supposed to, right? But he did. So now the question is, can he keep the money? So since it wasn't an idol until the non-Jew services it, so then he turns over the idol.
But isn't it like an idol? Because when you build it, you're building it to worship it.
It's probably lifnei iver, right? It's prohibition of lifnei iver. But if you violate a prohibition, you don't have to throw away your money, right? Lifnei iver, you don't have to throw away your money for lifnei iver. Only for Avodah Zara. El mandar shel ove kochavim asur miyad. But according to the opinion, it says even a non-Jew, as soon as it is built, it becomes asur immediately. Well, then now you're profiting from Avodah Zara because the idol is an Avodah Zara immediately as soon as you finish it. So, Michael Maimer, how are you going to explain why it is that he can keep the money? He's essentially sold an asur of an idol, so he can't profit from that. Elamar Rabba Bar Ula. So Rabba Ula says, Lo nitzricha ella be machush achron. Says what happens is he is hitting. He's getting his reward for the last hammer blow. Right? He's getting his little finish off, the finishing touch. Avodas kochavim man kegarim le. Man kegarim la. When it comes to idolatry, what makes this an idol? When is it not an idol, and when is it an idol? So the answer is gemar malacha. As soon as it's finished, it becomes an idol. Before it's finished, it's not an idol. So as soon as he finishes doing the paint or whatever is the last thing, that makes it an idol. Ve'emas havia gam gemar malacha. Okay, so when's the malacha finished? B'machush achron, when he hits it the last time, the last chisel, right? That makes it an idol. So now, machush achron leis beishava pruta. If the way that the work works is you get paid for every bit of work that you do along the way, right? So then every bit if you're going to get paid $100 for the idol and you are hammering this thing 1,000 times, essentially it's 10 cents a knock, right? So really it's going to wind up being much, much less. He's going to hit it 1,000 times for $100 or 10,000 times. It's like a penny a blow or something like that. So therefore, that last blow that he made it into Avodah Zara, before it wasn't Avodah Zara, so it's nothing. That last blow is less than a pruta. So therefore, the money that he got paid for all the permissible work that he did, not for the prohibited little bit. So Alma Kasavar Yesh Nelasirs Mitchil Levad Sof. This is subject to a machlokas that we had in I want to say it was in Kiddushin. Machlokas and Bava Kama was also, that's what I remember from Bava Kama. Machlokas, that when somebody does work, at what point do you owe him his wage, right? Do you owe him a little bit along the way? And essentially, the worker is loaning you the money until he finishes the job, then you pay him everything, but he really earns it along the way? Or is it that the job, until the job is complete, you owe him nothing?
No.
And then once the job is complete, then the entire thing is. So according to the opinion that says that last knock makes it the job complete, and now you owe him the whole thing, so that last knock is very valuable. And so then it would be prohibited. But according to the opinion that says, no, you're earning it along the way, that last knock is insignificant, and therefore that's why he's able to collect the money.
At the same time. But you don't pay him until the job's done, because maybe he
either way, you don't pay him until the job's done. But it makes a practical difference about whether it's a loan or whether it's not.
The final product, and you're not happy with the final product, why pay him at all when you want it a certain way?
That's a different question, whether he wanted. We're not talking about that he delivered an item that he didn't ask for. He delivered the item. He did the job, right? Question is, when I did the job, what are you paying for? Paying for a little bit at a time, or are you paying it all at once? Next Mishnah. This Mishnah...
Are you getting paid for the completion, or are you getting paid for the work up to the point?
That is the question.
Right.
Are you getting paid for the entire thing at the completion, or are you being paid for every little bit along the way?
Right. Somebody doesn't complete it, wouldn't get paid at all. That would be the Svara. Right?
You may not be obligated to pay until the item's complete anyway, right? There are other practical issues.
He's not owed. He wouldn't be owed.
But because the loan doesn't become due until he finishes the whole item anyway.
Right.
It's not going to pay either way until he finishes the work. But, right, it depends on, I guess if there's a loan, right? The question, if I remember in Kedushin, was whether he can use that money as something that he can then marry a woman with. Right? If he owes them, if it's a loan and he owes the money, if he forgives the loan, is that a forgiveness of a loan or is it really his, etc.? Okay. Says the Mishnah. Now, this first part of the Mishnah, I will say that Tosfos says we should delete. He does not understand what it is talking about, so we'll say it. But it is not in the Gemara in Yerushalmi. This part of the Mishnah. I did not check if it's in our Mishnayos, but.
Why was it deleted to begin with?
Because you're going to see what it says, and it's going to be very difficult for anybody to be able to understand what it means. So, starts off, Vein osin tachshitin la'avodas kochavim. You're not allowed to make
Ornaments.
Ornaments, thank you. Ornaments that are for idolatry. Katlos, which are chokers, nizamim are nose rings, v'tabos and other rings. And Rabbi Eliezer says, bischar mutter. The payment is if the Jew gets paid for that, so then it's mutter. If he gets paid for it, then it's permissible. So that is where it's very complicated to be able to understand. Why would you say if you got paid for it? Plus, the Gemara doesn't quote this or bring it at all. There are some that Mefarshim that explain what it means is that you're not supposed to make these things, but if you did and you got paid for it, the money you can keep, right? As we had been talking about before. But the item itself, it's not as permissible because you got paid. It's that if you got paid for making them, then you realize later you tshuva and you realize you shouldn't do it. The money is not...
It says the word schar.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean payment, does it? It's
That's the problem with that explanation, right? Bischar, if you get paid, then it's mutter. It doesn't say haschar mutter. The money is permissible. The money that you get in exchange is permissible. Right. Okay, but otherwise, Tosfos says we should start the Mishnah here. Ein mocher lehem b'mechuber lekarka. You're not to sell non-Jews plants that are attached to the ground. Aval mocher hu misha yiktzas, but you can sell them potted plants, things that are not in the ground. Rabbi Yehuda says, Mocher hu al minas lekots. You can sell it to him if there's a condition in the sale that the item is going to be cut. That's okay too. So we're going to see why. Says the Gemara. Minani, what is this talking about that says you can't sell these planted items? Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina says that it's on Chaf Amar Aleph. The Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Lo tichanem. Right? You should not. Tichanem means to show kindness is the word chen, right? We're going to see also means to encamp, right? You cannot give them an opportunity to park, right?
Is a holding.
Right. Lo titain lahem chaniya bekarka. You can't give them an encampment, a holding in the land. That's how we interpret it. So I love lo tichanem, tichanem. So the pasuk says lo tichanem mi boile. Right? But the pasuk says, right? You should say the pasuk says you should not give favor to them. Lo tichanem, you should not favor them. Dahachi kama rachmana. This is what the pasuk says. This is what the pasuk means to say. Lo titein lahem chen. Right? Don't give them kindness. Don't show don't talk about an idolater and say, look, he's such a nice guy. What a good-looking guy. Don't do that. Not the right way to talk about idolaters because it promotes people's for getting along with each other, and we want to be able to keep our distance a little from the Avodah Zara. Im kain, if that's true, lema kro lo tichunam. If that's the way the pasuk is, then it should say, don't tichunam, don't give kindness to them, lo tichunam. My lo tichanem, what do you mean when you have the vowelization of lo tichanem? Shmuel Martati, it has a double language. It means don't show them kindness, also don't give them an encampment. The we still need this pasuk for a different drosh. Dehachi Gamar Rachman, the Torah says like this: Lo sitin lahem matnas shel chinam. Don't give them anything for free. Don't give free gifts. Again, we don't want to create camaraderie with the stranger non-Jew. If this is not applied to a friend who's a non-Jew, because with a friend who's a non-Jew, the reason why you're giving him a gift is because you're hoping that if you give him a birthday present, he'll give you a birthday present. It's really a business transaction, right? So that's not a problem. But we're talking about, the non-Jew walks into your store and you give him a free sample or something like that. Don't start giving away free things to give the camaraderie to the non-Jews. Im Kain, le makra, so that's what the pasuk says, lo techanem, don't give them freebies. Same Kain, lema kra lo techinam. If that was all the pasuk meant, it would say lo techinam, don't give free to them. My lo techanem, how do you explain the pasuk says lo techinam? Shmamina kulu. It means all of these things. Don't give them an encampment, don't show them kindness, and don't give them freebies. Tayyinami Yochiva Brisa says this as well. Lo techanem, lo titin lam chaniya, don't give them an encampment. Bekarka in the land. Davaracher, another thing it means, lo techanem, lo titin lahem chen. Lo techanem means don't give them kindness. Davaracher, another thing it means, lo techanem, lo titin lahem matnas chinam, don't give them a freebie. Umatnas chinam gufa tanahi, and as far as giving away freebies, that is in itself a machlokas. Tanya in Brisa, lo toklu kol nevela. You should not, if you have a nevela, right? Your cow gets hit by the tractor. So now what do you do with the meat? So legera shirbisharecha titnena ve'achla. You should give it to the convert who is in your midst, and he should eat it. Vein machur lenachri, or you can sell it to a non-Jew. Difference between a ger is not this is non-kosher meat. So we're talking about a ger toshav. He's the non-Jew who has agreed to dwell in your midst and follow the Jewish laws. The nachri is a who has nothing to do with you at all. So those are your choices. Either give it to him or sell it to the non-Jew. So that means that sounds like, Ainli ella leger b'nesina, you can either give it to your kindly neighborhood non-Shabbos goy, or you can sell it to another non-Jew. Leger b'mechira minayin. How do I know that I can also, if I want to sell it to my friendly neighborhood Shabbos goy, that I can as well? Talmud Lomar, therefore the pasuk says, Titnena o machor love kochavim. So therefore you can give it or you can sell it to an ovei kochavim. Benesina minayin. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Leger b'mechir minayin. Tamalomar titnena o machor. You can give it or sell it. Now we're reading the pasuk with commas in wrong places, but you can read it in all the different ways. It has all of those meanings. Lo v'kochavim benesina minayin. How do I know that an idolater I can also give it to him if I wanted to? Let's say I wanted to give it a freebie. So Tamalomar titnena ve'achla o machor, right? You can give it to him to eat it, or you can sell it lenachri. So therefore, those are your choices. Each one, v'nimtza at omer. Now at the end, in the conclusion, if you're reading the pasuk this way, echad ger v'echad ovekachavim bein b'nesina bein mechira. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says it doesn't make a difference whether he's your friendly neighborhood non-Jew or he is a stranger non-Jew. You can give it to him for free. You can sell it to him. Whatever you want to do with this non-kosher meat, which means that Rabbi Meir holds there's no problem giving gifts to non-Jews. Rabbi Yehuda says dvarim kich savon. No, you got to read this pasuk exactly. You have to read this pasuk exactly as it's written. Leger ben nesina. You have to give it to your friendly neighborhood non-Jew, and lo v'kochavim b'mechira, and the ovei kochavim you have to sell it. So then it's shapir kama Rabbi Meir. But Rabbi Meir has a good answer. So Rabbi Meir has a good answer, right? So you can read the pasuk in all these different ways. Rabbi Yehuda will say, if it was like Rabbi Meir said, so lichtov rachmana titnena ve'achla, you can give it to him and he will eat it. Umachor, and you can also sell it. Oh, lamali, why does it say or? Or divides the pasuk, and it says this part you could do, or this part. Shmamina lidvarm kichsavanhu da'asa. It means that you can, just as it says, either give it to the person who is a nice non-Jew, or you could sell it to another non-Jew. Rabbi Meir, hahulak dumi nasina deger lemechir dove kochavim. Rabbi Meir says, no, you know what the or is for? Is to tell me that it is better to give it to your friendly neighborhood non-Jew than it is to sell it to McDonald's, right? Better, you should do that. That's the nicer thing to do. For Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi says, came into ger look, that non-Jew who lives in your midst, you have to take care of him. So, uknani, and you have no such obligation to the knani, to the idol worshippers. So, I don't need the pasuk to tell me which is better. Of course, we already know that which is better. So, you see, it's an argument between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda whether you can give a free gift to a non-Jew. Place to stop.
Okay.